In this introduction to design thinking approach, we will discuss about the philosophy, about the principles, and also about the stages and the tools used in design thinking process. Now, what is often said and what is often quoted as the definition of design thinking, it's that it's the process of designing which is user-centric or client-centric. Now, if you hear this kind of an expression, it sounds pretty obvious. I mean, we all design or we think about solutions for the users. It's not for the designers, but what does it really mean in practice? To explain that and to illustrate the point, I will tell you a story about the restoration of one of the parks in the city where I live. So there was this project. The park was really, it needed restoration badly. So it was, there were some designers, architects employed to think about the new way of, how to arrange the paths and where to plant the trees and nice flowers and everything. Yeah. And so what they did, they actually, they made the new design. It was very aesthetic. These were the architects that worked on it. And they opened the park for the public, for the users. And after a few weeks, it was noticed that some people were not using the paths which were there, but they were, crossing the lawns and, sort of destroying it. And the question was, okay, what happened here? I mean, we've got a new park. It's so nice, and why would people, not use the paths that were so nicely designed? Yeah, it was all about the symmetry and rectangular, regular geometric shapes. But people just took the shortcuts, and that's how they used the paths. Yeah. Now, what happened here was that in fact the park is situated between the university buildings, and a lot of people, rather than just take the standard route, they would just take the shortcuts through the park. So normally, if I were to think, and that's probably how the designers thought, if you think about the park and its users, it's people just coming, going there to relax or to walk the dog or to, sit and read a book. But apparently a lot of users of this particular park were just using it, as a nice change from the daily route. So instead of, taking their standard route, they would say, okay, let me just walk for a moment through this, be in the nice environment, in the greenery. But they were not really stopping there. Yeah, they were not sitting on benches. They were just crossing the park, and they were taking shortcuts. So treading on the lawn and not using the nicely designed paths. Yeah. So here we've got two perspectives. We've got the perspective of the designers who, with the best of their intentions, they wanted to create something nice and beautiful. But we also have the perspective of the users. Yeah. Now, what could happen and what should have happened according to this design thinking methodology was that probably they would, if they had the moment they had removed this old arrangement in the park, they could just leave the ground as it is, and they could have let the people walk through it. Yeah, and then people would probably take the shortcuts as they normally would, and then the designers could place the paths or design the paths, put them in the right in the places where people actually walked. Yeah, so this is the thinking. It's not the thinking, okay, how I think it should be or what I assume, people, how people spend time in the park, but it's actually about observing and adapting to what actually the people want, yeah, and how they use a product, a service, and in this case, this public space in the park. Yeah, so it's a switch of perspective, and it changes everything. Yeah. We will talk about the examples, more examples in a moment. Yeah. So what happens in design thinking process? It's looking for the solution, or it's looking for solutions in the first stage, but then finding the solution. That would be something what people want and what they actually want, not what I assume they might want. Something that would be doable. So, okay, I can have great ideas, I can have really innovative or creative thinking employed, but it has to be, you know, something that will be possible to implement at a given moment. And finally, you know, in most cases, these are the commercial projects, so it should also make sense financially. So, you know, if I'm an organization that wants to earn money, of course, it has to be profitable. If I want to use my budget, I have to be within the budget. So also this aspect is taken into consideration. So somewhere in the center of those three lenses, we are looking for the ideal solution. Yeah, so something that people want, really want. Yeah, not what the company wants or what is easier to implement or what had been done. You know, had always been done. Something which is doable at a given point of time. Yeah. So if the technology allows it, if we have the right resources, also financial resources. So also, also in terms of money. So this is the idea. It's not innovation for the sake of innovation. It's not you know, thinking of solutions which are not profitable, but mostly it's about looking for from the user's perspective. It's not only about things that are, you know, cutting edge technologies. It's not about something radically new. It's also about small improvements. Yeah. So there will be examples of design thinking projects where one small feature has been improved because of the user's voice. Yeah. Sometimes at a low cost. Yeah. These are things that are simple solutions which didn't cost more, but are very welcome by the users. Yeah, so these are those. These are the applications of design thinking. Now, what are the stages or phases of design thinking process? There are 5 or 6 of them, depending on the method. Some people would say it's 5 and that's the end. I will add one more to the ones that are visible on the slide, and I will explain why it makes sense. So the first one is empathize. The second is definition or defining the solution, or the goal of the solution. The third one is looking for ideas and also finding the one which is, you know, the best. And then prototyping, and finally testing the solution. What could be added as the 6th stage is implementation. So in a lot of projects, especially but not only, but sometimes happens in business that you have some projects that are started, but they are not implemented. So somehow there is not enough, drive to implement them, or maybe it's about resources. So a lot of effort goes into those stages, but of course, the best ideas are the ones that really work. Yeah. So something which is implemented, this is only where we can think about solutions and talk about solutions and not only ideas. Yeah. So empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. We shall go one by one. So today we shall go up to ideate. Yeah, so we shall stop here. And in our next meeting, we are going to talk about prototyping and testing, but also we shall talk about the principles of design. So this is the idea. Okay, and why those stages of the process? So it looks a little bit like some kind of project methodology, but it's slightly different, and let me explain why. Normally, if you think about traditional projects where you have different phases, you go from one to another. Yeah, so the idea is, okay, we plan ahead. We've got certain steps in the process. We've got milestones. We've got sign-offs after each, and ideally, once I finish the first part of my project, I get the sign-off from my sponsor. I don't go back. Yeah. So this is fixed. We've done it. Yeah, and this sort of this seems to make sense, and it does make sense in a lot of cases. So when I know what the end product is, this kind of traditional method of looking, managing the projects or project thinking, this is all right. Yeah, because I know the end result. I can plan backwards. I can also estimate the required resources pretty well. Okay, for example, if I build a bridge, I know what the bridge will look like. I have the right design. I can calculate how much concrete, how much steel, how much workforce I will need, and then of course I can monitor if I go according to plan. But here it's different. Yeah, design thinking is very often about solutions, which we don't know, what they will be about. Yeah. It's also about things that have to be very much in line with what the user wants. Yeah, if you remember the Spark and the users, it's constantly about going back and making sure, okay, is it the right thing? Is it what the users want? Yeah. So rather than go from one stage to another, like a bit like in a chevron slide, and signing off, stopping, and not going back. Here, what happens is like a little bit like going back in circles. Yeah. So we start with empathize. So we try to discover and find out about what the user really wants. Also trying to put ourselves in their shoes. Then we go to defining, what the challenge is, what the problem is really. Only afterwards do we think about solutions. So, all those creative thinking techniques come here, only here, yeah, on the ideate stage. Then we prototype and then we test. But as you can see in the slide, there are options where I can even go back from the last stage. So when I test with the user, I might find out, okay, this is not really what they want. So in some way, I can go back and try to discover what the real needs are. Yeah. So it is part of this thinking. It's not carved in stone. My ideal output is in line with what the user wants, and that's why I'm allowed to go back. Yeah. So even from testing to empathizing, yeah. If I test the prototype, then I can fix the prototype and go back. Yeah. If the prototype, doesn't work, I can also go to ideate and so on and so forth. Yeah. We will go stage by stage, so this will become more clear as we continue. But the thing to remember right now is that it is not about going from one stage to another and not turning back, but it's about turning back if needed, of course. If I need, I can always go back to the user. I can try to double check and make sure this is really what they want, and if I understood it correctly. Now, why is this user so important? Here we've got this metaphor of the iceberg. So some people say, okay, your solutions, your creative thinking, this is only the tip of the iceberg. What is really important and where most of the effort and work and time should go is under the water. Yeah. So you have to make sure that you have this, under the water well covered, because otherwise you will come up with a solution and then you will crash because the users will say, no, that's not what we wanted, right? Or people will tread on the grass, yeah, and they will not use those nice paths in the park because it's not really what their needs were, yeah. So let's say the proportion of thinking in design thinking is it's about really checking and making sure what the user wants. It seems easy in theory, but in practice, that's at least what I have experienced. You know, I have so many nice ideas, and I know, or I assume I know what the users want, and I have those quick fixes. So it's very tempting. Let me go back to the slide with stages. So it's very tempting to jump to this ideate stage. I know how to fix it. I know the solution. Or I'm a designer. I have been an experienced architect, so I know what people want because I've been working in that field for so many years. So why should I worry about empathize, define, or whatever it is called? So this is very, very tempting to jump to this third stage. And it does require some discipline, not to assume things. We'll do one exercise today about assumptions, about hypotheses, as this is called, to discover what this really is about. Okay, so remember the iceberg. What the user wants, what needs to be discovered is under the water, and this is where the most of the iceberg goes, and the proportion of what needs to be done in terms of let's say ideating or coming with a solution only comes this is the top or the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. Okay. In other words, if we were to define the design thinking is making something that people want. Yeah, this is probably the essence of the DT. So why is the design needed? So is it because something new needs to be drafted, or is it something needs to be improved? For whom is it? Yeah, and we are looking for users. Ideally, we are looking for heavy users. Yeah, I mean, if I think about education, of course, our students are the heavy users. They use education extensively. But if you think, for example, about some online courses, there will be people who use that sparingly, and probably we have in mind somebody who will use it more often. And yeah, the question is, how can we help? How can we help the users to have a better user experience, and only after that we come up with a solution. Okay, so normally in design thinking projects, we have a lot of participants. It's not that the more the better, but it's good to have a variety of, let's say, roles. Yeah, of course we have got the designer, and of course we've got the user, because the designer designs and the user will share their insights. But it's also good to have people who are not directly involved in the process. Yeah, I will give you an example from a business process. So, for example, in recruitment process, if you try to improve it, of course, you've got candidates, you've got people, recruiters, yeah, from human resources, and you've got some person who will be working on the process improvement. But it's also good to have, for example, people who are the internal clients, so people for whom to whose teams people are taken on board. Yeah, so okay, I don't know, the operations manager, and I'm the internal client of the recruitment team. So okay, I'm not directly involved in recruiting. Maybe I will interview some candidates, but I'm the internal customer of the process. We could have also people who are potentially interested in applying for the company, so not yet candidates, but for example, interns or students. So people who have this new perspective. So the key for having a good team for design thinking is to have this variety. Not too many people also, because yeah, too big teams who for two big teams, it will be difficult to have fruitful discussions and work. But there should be, and sometimes it's even a person from outside, having a totally different perspective. Like in this example, the student who, doesn't know much maybe about recruitment process. They are just, people. They're just people who might one day consider to apply for a job. Yeah. So this is about who should and who normally takes part in those projects. If it's a project and it's intensive in time, it's good to have a facilitator. So somebody who is not directly involved in interviewing the users or coming up with a solution, but they will make sure that there is this discipline of keeping those stages of design thinking, supporting the team with the tools, and maybe asking the right questions. So facilitator is welcome, not always there in practice, but of course they could help. Yeah. So if I think about products in education, this might be people who, maybe, I teach English or I teach management, but I might have a teacher of some other course to support me in that process, because they are not directly involved, but they can have a fresh perspective. Okay, and let's go phase by phase. So the first one is empathize, and if you remember this tip of the iceberg and the proportion, this is probably one of the most important stages in design thinking, if not the most important. Yeah, so this is really something that is the foundation, or the cornerstone of the whole structure. So what is it, and how do I know, or how should I know or discover what the user or the users want? So this is done through many ways. The most obvious probably and the easiest would be asking questions. So we have a certain group of users, we have questionnaires, or we have interviews, and we ask them questions. This is also something we will practice in one of the exercises. Now, it's good to have a list of questions ready, but also be flexible and ask something that just comes up in a conversation. And it's good to ask open questions. So open questions will open the door for the users to disclose small things about their experience. So if I think about somebody who uses a product, for example, a mobile phone, I will ask them how they use it, when they use it most, what purpose it serves, but also I will ask them about the challenges they have, so what problems they see, what they like, if they were to improve it, what would that be, what disturbs them, and so on and so forth. So we are also going to practice those questions. It is about active listening. So of course I can have already some ideas and I want to give hints, but ideally in design thinking I should be this perfect attentive listener and just absorb what the user says. The second option is, okay, I can ask questions, but I can also observe. So I can just, I don't know, for example, stand in a supermarket and see, at the cash desk, at the checkout, and see what problems people have when they, put their groceries on the belt, when they pay. So I can say, okay, I can note down what do people struggle with? When they get stuck, when they get upset. This is another option. Or, for example, a reception desk, I don't know, or reception at the hotel. I can sit there down in the lobby and see, what issues there are. When people are happy, unhappy, this is another option. And the third option is I can immerse myself in the word of the user. So yes, I might, for example, get the experience of being a patient in a hospital. So it's not that I ask the patients how they feel, or not that I observe them, but I pretend to be a patient and I take this perspective. Sometimes I don't have another option. If you think about children, for example, yeah, I cannot ask them questions. Yeah, I might really, try to take their perspective. So there is this classic story in design thinking about a guy who actually, he lie down on the floor to take the perspective of his little son, because and then he found out something really, really interesting. If you know, there are those toys that you hang over the baby's cot. There is some kind of there are different shapes and colors. They are supposed to be there for the small child to play with, to look at. Yeah. But if you look at those toys, you can find out that, if you look at them from the perspective of a child, you don't see much. You don't see the shapes. You just see the bottom of it, right? So if I take the perspective of an adult looking at it, it's fine. But if I lie down, yeah, I have a different perspective. So this is also about immersion, yeah. And some people do that, right? So you have got this concept of a mystery client. So I go and I pretend to be a client of a bank if I'm the, for example, process improvement person, and I look, how difficult or easy it is to go through the, I don't know, some process, of, I don't know, starting a bank account, for example, yeah. Okay, so these are the three things. So it's about listening, it's about observing, or finally it's the experience. So immersion. When we ask questions, or observe, or immerse ourselves in the word of the user, sometimes it's good to be aware of the assumptions, yeah, and sometimes it's good to make hypotheses, yeah. So for example, if I were to improve a process, I don't know, or a product, for example, public transport in my hometown, well, I could make some assumptions on what people dislike or what people would welcome, basing on my own experience. Okay, I'm also the user. Maybe I'm not a heavy user, but I'm the user of the public transport. So I could note down what disturbs me, what what annoys me, what my challenges are, what I would welcome, how I use the transport, and what would be the probable challenges. So if I list them down, then I can use them and check with the users. I might be right, but I might be wrong. Yeah. So if you remember this example of the park from the first part of the lecture, I might assume, yeah, people go to the park because they want to relax, sit on the bench, or just relax. But probably I would not assume that they just rush through the park because they are on their way to the lecture or to the classes at the university, and they don't care because they just want to walk through for a nice park rather than just take the street, right? So this is also one of the exercises we're going to do, to have a list of the so-called hypotheses in design thinking, and assumptions, and just check them. What is also done as a result of those observation, immersion, asking questions, it's a kind of empathy map. Yeah. And what is empathy map? Empathy map is the word of the user. Yeah, the word of the user. So if they use a product or service, what do they see? Yeah? What do they hear? What are their thoughts and feelings? Yeah, what benefits they are looking for, and what pain points or challenges they experience. Yeah, so I map their word. Yeah, this is kind of output at this stage, after I have heard from them, after I have observed them, and after I have found out more about their experience with the product. Yeah, so yeah, this is also something that we will look at. And Only after that phase do we go to the definition. Definition is not yet a solution. So this is interesting. It only comes as the third stage in design thinking. So yeah, in the define stage, we've got a lot of data. So we've got answers to our questions. We've got the results of the observation. We've got, yeah, maybe empathy map, maybe a lot of insights, but yeah, because it's for many users and probably, you know, the challenges and things that they would welcome as a, you know, as a change, the product or service, it's a lot. So how do I go from there to some specific problem statement? Yeah. So this requires listing and analysis and synthesizing it and selecting one specific problem. Yeah. Well, it's easier said than done because normally I would like to fix a lot, but typically in design thinking projects, we are supposed to focus on something specific, even a small change, and try to fix that. Yeah. So yeah, we've got this awareness and knowledge of yeah, who our users are, about their needs, and why a certain, you know, group of problems or a problem is specific to them. Yeah. And here we are focusing on, you know, solving the right issue. Okay. And here we've got an example of the output of the design phase. It's about some food delivery application. And the problem is, okay, how could we, or how might we make food delivery tracking easier for elderly users? Yeah, this was one of the examples of this problem. So they said, okay, certain users, senior users of the application, and they have this problem of, you know, finding whatever, you know, whatever information in the application. Maybe there are some other, maybe there are some other options. Yeah. So this is the possible output. What we are looking here is patterns. You know, these are also motivations, repeated frustrations. You know, something that comes up as an issue. Yeah, something that creates a problem for users. Yeah. What is often done at this point, we have got this empathy map in the previous stage. Here we can use a persona. So a persona is a concept taken from marketing. So it's about creating a typical user of a product or service based on the information we had accumulated earlier. And normally how it is done, yeah, we give the person a name, you know, we sort of imagine and say, okay, typically what age they would be, or we give age brackets. We talk about their goals, we talk about their challenges, behaviors, and needs. Yeah. Alternatively, we can also think about the typical day in the life of our persona. Yeah. So this also helps to empathize with the user. Yeah. I have once done this kind of exercise with my clients. These were people who were they were, you know, working in sales, and their, you know, the process of contacting their potential clients was very difficult because these were people who worked at the construction sites. They were either the managers or the owners of the, you know, real estate companies, and you know, to get really in touch with them, this was a challenge. Yeah. And they were very, you know, frustrated. Of course, this process couldn't go on. They felt sort of ignored and everything. But when we did this persona exercise, and they imagined those people, you know, how their life looks like, you know, their day looks like on the construction site, they suddenly understood, yes, I mean, it might be very, very difficult for them to pick up the phone and, you know, focus on some, I don't know, insurance stuff they were talking about. So this completely changed the perspective. So also this persona, although we are in the define stage, also helps to, you know, clarify and make clear what the user is about, you know, what, I mean, what they struggle with, right? And we shall do an exercise on a persona in the practical part of the workshop. So this is about define, a definition, or yeah, defining a problem statement. It should be crisp, yeah. So it should be about yeah, what we, yeah, what the problem is and why, yeah. So we say, okay, so our users need a way to whatever because, yeah, so we have this insight and we've got their priority, yeah. And this how might we question is a good way to summarize the define stage, yeah. So how could we or how might we change our application so it is more user friendly for example, senior users, yeah. This is an example of a problem statement. Or how could we make our public transport a safer solution for people who yeah, have to take it at night, for example, yeah, if this is the challenge, and so on and so forth. So this is, or how could we make it more friendly for children, and so on and so forth. So this is the define stage, and that leads us to the next one, which is about ideation. Ideation is the moment when we create solutions based on the problem statement. So here, you know, all ways of trying to find a good idea count. So all the creative thinking techniques, brainstorming, reverse brainstorming, yeah, whatever solutions you have, this will work, yeah. And here only at this stage comes the so-called divergent thinking. So we are trying to generate as many solutions as possible and also divergently try to find the best solution. We will practice more, and I will explain it in a moment. In one of the exercises, we will practice Scamper. And now, after describing the first stages of the design thinking process, I will tell you about the exercises. These are also the exercises for the people who are not participating in the workshop, but they might want to do it, you know, on their own. I will explain the exercises, then we will take a break, and I will come back to it. We will go one by one, so you don't have to note it down because we will have the opportunity to look at them, and I also will provide with, you know, provide you with extra explanations if possible. The first exercise that we will do will be about empathizing and about asking questions. So we will find the types of questions that will, in your opinion, work best for this stage. And we'll try to come up with a list of questions for some product related to education to ask the user. Yeah. So yeah, if you have in mind, for example, a user of an online course, of a user or a student maybe, or somebody who takes part in private lessons one-on-one, this will be counting as a product, yeah, or service, or maybe some teaching materials or a handbook. This is also an option. We will also work on hypothesis. So this also is part of the empathize phase. Again, here we need a product or a service that is popular. So not not something niche, but something everybody uses. Yeah. I don't know, a coffee machine maybe, or taxi services, maybe a hotel, those kind of examples. Now, if we were to imagine that we are going to ask users about their experience and about their expectations, what would we think those expectations are? And the task is to list some assumptions. Yeah. So to give you an example, well, if I were to think about a hypothesis for the users of a hotel, I would probably think of something. Yes, for those people, the main challenge might be that they have to check in quite late and check out very early. Yeah? So whenever I'm going somewhere, it's always a challenge. What do I do with my luggage? Yeah, because I can only check in, I don't know, at 2 p.m. and I have to check out maybe at 11 a.m. And if I travel for a short time, what do I do? But that's my challenge and that's my assumption. Maybe if I, talk to some of you, maybe that will not be an issue. Yeah, it's an issue for me, so that I assume. But I can check. Yeah. So apart from asking my standard questions, the ones I prepared, I can ask the user, listen, would you say that those check-in, check-out times are an issue or not? Yeah, and then I can confirm it or disprove it. Then we'll talk about personas again. Here in the slide, you can see an example persona. What it contains is the name. As I said, we always give a name to our persona. We imagine them, as a specific person that has a job, lives somewhere, what age they have, what goals they have connected with the product or service, what their challenges are, what their needs are, and what their motivation is. Of course, this persona is a part of the define stage, and it's based on the answers to the questions we asked and observations, immersion. And also, this is summarizing. Let's say it serves the purpose of summarizing the problem. We'll do it you will do it for your students. So not exactly how it is done in design thinking, but this is for the sake of exercise, and also probably quite a lot about the, let's say, the typical student of yours. So we'll do that, to also have the idea what persona is. And finally, about ideation and the creative solutions. Again, we'll select a product or service. If time permits, we'll do both, because services are typically more difficult to think in terms of, according to the creative thinking technique I'm going to show. If not, we should just do one, and we should do it in 2 stages. So the first one will be thinking of as many ideas as possible, even the craziest ones. And then the task would be to select 5 that are, making most sense or the easiest to implement, or alternatively might be the source of inspiration. So we can sort of play with the idea and maybe do something else with it. I will tell you exactly how and why once we have the list of ideas. The technique we'll follow is called Scamper. So I take a product, so whatever I have, I don't know, toilet paper, for example, and or maybe a service as well. I provide services because I do training. I work also as a freelance trainer, so I could say, all right, how do I play with my product or service? And I go one by one, and I imagine, okay, if I were to replace certain parts of it with something else, in my product, or if I were to merge some ideas. So, for example, come up with, 2-in-1 or 3-in-1 something new, right? if I could, take this toilet paper and adapt it to other needs, yeah. Some people do that. I've seen on, in some movie that somebody didn't have this, coffee filter. You have got those, paper filters, and they use the toilet paper, yeah. So they run out of their filters, so they use it. I don't recommend it. Doesn't seem hygienic, but it's an idea, right? And we can also modify the product or service, yeah. So minimize it, make it very big. This is an option. And what would be the solutions or ideas there? We can also use it in a different way, make it simpler by eliminating features or parts of it. And finally, we can rearrange it, change order, maybe put it upside down or turn it inside out. Yeah, lots of options here. So we will go one by one.